You can take one of these old cars and drive it across country, and you're going to get appreciation and thumbs up anywhere you go in the country.
Every one of these cars is an object of art to a certain degree. So that's why we call it, in our generation now, rolling art.
I think that Southern California is the Egypt of cars. There's more significant cars down here than any other place in the world.
And we're only the keepers of the car temporarily, because it's going to go on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation.
One of the nice things about having a little bit of property is the ability to do projects like this and not necessarily have them all sitting in your front yard. In the restoration process, cars don't look pretty at the beginning. They only look pretty at the end. We're doing what we call a mechanical restoration on this car. We're replacing the engine and transmission, redoing the brakes, new shocks and other suspension components, new exhaust system, and just making it a good roadworthy daily driver. Back in the day when these cars were built, an entire car came off the assembly line every 30 to 45 seconds. When you take a car apart 40 or 50 years later, inventory all the components, search out all the replacements, do all the repair to the body and to the interior and everything else, rebuild the engine, you're typically looking at a project that takes anywhere from 6 months to a little over a year. I've been doing this kind of thing, car repair, car restoration, pretty much since I had a driver's license. Sometimes you can just push this by hand. Got introduced to this by my dad when he bought a muscle car back in the late 60s, a Ford Fairlane GTA, and it's kind of how it's become my primary interest is fixing and restoring Oldsmobiles. There we go. Cars of this era, I affectionately call them analog cars. There were no onboard computer systems or any kind of electronics whatsoever connected to the engine. There's satisfaction in following the path that the original manufacturer engineers took when they created the car in the first place. You're taking a car apart that somebody thought through 40, 45, maybe 50 years ago. Didn't have CAD, didn't have computer. They thought this up out of their head. They did mathematical analysis, they drew drawings, they did a ton of trial and error. Kind of a dirty job. And then created a car that then you are going to dismantle and recreate and follow their path on what they did. And when you're done and you step back and look at a car that's finished, you come away with it with a sense of understanding better what was going on in the minds of the engineers and the people on the assembly line and all of that when they built these cars in the first place.
I'm hoping that they see something that will interest them, learning how something operates. When you deal with the cars that we have, it's an interaction between you and the machine. You understand it, you operate it. Basically, I'm one of the founders with Stanley Zimmerman. We put the museum together, and we would go places with our kids all the time, and people would come and talk to us, and, oh, that's a nice car. Can we sit in it? Can we, touch it? Yes, sit in it, touch it. This is what the cars are for. So we thought about opening up a place where you can really get into a car, sit in a car, we get the history of the car, walk around the car, and we even came up with the idea of taking a car out on a Sunday and giving rides in the car. So we're sort of a hands-on museum, the only one in the world that does what we do. I don't see kids in high school wanting to learn to drive ASAP. It doesn't interest them that much as it did my generation and the generations before, to get into a car, to know how the mechanics operated. It was most important to have a car. You took your girlfriend out in it. You met your wife with these kind of cars. You hot rodded them. You handled them. A car to them is a piece of transportation. It's not like points, plugs, and condensers or modifying a manifold. We're just automatically expecting what we have to operate, and if it doesn't work, go get another one. It's sort of like a throwaway society.
Anybody that says that they don't make them like they used to, the cars today are better than they've ever been, ever. The first word out of my mouth was car, my mom told me. And I had a fantastic grandfather that always was a car guy. He had a 1966 Ford Galaxy 500 candy apple red 352 Cleveland engine convertible. And he said to me, if you continue being a good boy, Jeff, when you're 16, I'll take you for your driver's license and I'll give you this car. That's exactly what he did. I would say the cars of today, the amenities and reliability are at all-time high. I mean, think about it. All the car manufacturers, they are building amazing cars that, are lasting longer, don't need to be tuned up and so on.
The driving experience is more about keeping you comfortable in a car, but just getting you from A to B in the most cost-effective manner. Got it. They probably didn't own a brand new car till they'd been driving for 10 or better years, so they were buying used cars. The world now is much different in that cars are more readily available to people getting their first car.
The vehicle itself opened up the nation. It expanded the horizon from the East Coast to the West Coast. It just exploded the development of the country and the availability and the fun of doing it. You would take your family on a picnic and go 40 miles away to a park because you had a vehicle.
And it was a lot more difficult. To a Model T, there was probably about 20, 30 minutes of preparation to get the car ready to go before you even took off.
A quick story is I knew a designer for cars, Raymond Dietrich, who was very prominent in custom building cars back in the 20s and the 30s. We had dinner one night, he told me a story. He said, I had to design a town car for a gentleman. So here he's giving his requirement to Ray. I want to be able to sit in the back seat with my girlfriend on my lap with a feather flume in her hair and me wearing a top hat. So now you had to figure out the height of the girl, the height of the feather, and his top hat while she's sitting on his lap so that the room was high enough inside for him to have all that kind of thing. Now that's an excess. But that's an experience you don't get today. You don't walk into a Chevrolet dealer, a Lincoln dealer, a Cadillac dealer and say, I want to sit in the back seat with a top hat and my girlfriend on my lap.
There was even in a Model T a way to put a chicken but next to the engine and cook the chicken on the way to going to wherever they were going. They were trying different things. Think about it.
You go to a car lot now and it's hard to have your emotions stirred by anything you're looking at to buy. It was obvious to anybody who had spent any time watching car commercials or reading the magazine ads or anything. They knew that was a 57 Chevy coming down the road or a T-Bird or whatever, because they were so dynamically different from each other, even in the same era.
There we go. Okay.
That kind of gets you back to, I want to be seen in it because it's different. It's cool.
The guy that's coming in here to buy a car, this is a great adventure. It's the hunt, it's the finding, I found the perfect car. This is the configuration. This is what my father had. This is what I always wanted to have. This is what was cool when I was in school. It's not going on when you're walking into a Kia lot.
Well, cars in the past had different styling, but they had personality. Every car was unique. Today, from my perspective, the cars look like a jelly bean on wheels.
The car was about design first and function second. It's the reverse now. It's about function first now and style second.
Yep. Keep coming. Okay, hold it.
It became an accounting game, a numbers game. The cars were built on platforms. They were designed to last as long as the life of the loan on the car. And how many different models, efficiencies can we get on a platform versus building cars specifically with their own bumpers and their own hoods and things like that. There was no efficiencies to that. So it became more of a mass manufacturing process.
It started with the first Ford Taurus, and we affectionately call that car a baked potato car. The majority of those cars all have a very similar shape, a very short rear end, very short trunk. Okay, hold it. But very slab size. Everything is very smooth, no very definitive body lines, very plain Jane looking cars.
You could take an old car when I was a kid and sit on the curb, close your eye, and they'd drive by or start, and you could tell by the sound of the engine whether it was a General Motors, whether it was a Ford, whether it was a Chrysler product. They all had their own intrinsic sound. The experience of doing this is totally different. We wanted to get in it, we wanted to tinker with it, we wanted to monkey around with the speed, the different components to see if we could improve them and get other things out of it. A lot of kids today have no interest in any of that.
And that is what's not there now with most cars. Cars are designed to isolate you from the road, isolate you from outside, isolate you from life. That's not how cars were built 40, 50 years ago. They were built to feel the road, to be a part of the road, to enjoy the driving experience, even as archaic to some extent as it may have been back then as compared to cars of today, with a little wind noise and a little vibration in the steering wheel and a little extra effort on stopping the car with, older style brakes. But you drove that car. It wasn't a cocoon, it was just an extension of you. And just like that, engine in a car. So the excitement, the style, the awe of owning a car, of coming home with a brand new car and all your neighbors want to come over and check it out, that's kind of lost now. Alrighty, let's see if this thing can come to life. You bought a new car, it was a big deal. You drove a car and you made a statement. You bought a car as an extension of yourself and how you thought about the world, how you wanted to express yourself, how you wanted people to see you is what you bought a car for. And I think that is lost in the menagerie of the daily driver, econobox commuter car now.